pretty nice day today again, trying to find those fall colors before they're all gone. And what did I read today? Some thought-provoking stuff actually, but I guess first, how about this? Apparently here it says the FBI are warning about illegal weaponized drones. This one says, FBI says illegal weaponized drones are here now in the US. What does that entail, huh? Are they going to try to restrict it more, I guess? It says FBI Director Christopher Wray revealed Thursday that his agents are investigating several instances where someone in the US weaponized a drone by adding an improvised explosive device. Mr. Wray was urging Congress to act to renew federal authority to block drones from big events such as the Super Bowl, warned of what might happen if that doesn't happen. We're investigating, even as we speak, several instances within the US of attempts to weaponize drones with homemade IEDs. That is the future that is here now, Mr. Wray told the Senate Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee during a briefing on global threats facing the country. Congress has authorized the federal law enforcement to designate certain events and block drones from flying near them. But the authority expires next month, and the House and Senate are haggling over the details of renewing it. Sounds kind of interesting. It makes me wonder what the details are in terms of people weaponizing the drones per se. And as well, in terms of a classification, is it going to be everything, even like a toy, for example? Because for the most part, I guess it would make sense to block it from certain events and all that at the same time. It's just way too broad with the way a lot of this stuff is categorized, with how much of a radius too in terms of what it blocks. Imagine again, somebody flying a toy just within their own property, no higher than their house. Technically that's illegal because they treat it all as like a huge manned aircraft. But again, I guess it's all in the name of safety per se anyways, from what they constantly say. And then I read this today, which was so fascinating to think about. It deals with that FTX scandal where the cryptocurrency exchange company FTX essentially lost billions of dollars. People are out of their money now, and there was all this bankruptcy stuff going on. Now, for the CEO, apparently he got interviewed in this article, which highlights how fundamentally, if I'm interpreting this correctly, he's saying he lied so much per se in order to get what he needed, in the sense of saying, well, everyone does it, I guess. It says, Sam Bankman-Fried tries to explain himself, the fallen crypto CEO, on what went wrong, why did he do what he did, and what lies he told along the way. It seems like the person had a Twitter direct message interview with the person to kind of get into his head, and it says, as we messaged, I was trying to make sense of what, behind the PR and the charitable donations and the lobbying, Bankman-Fried actually believes about what's right and what's wrong, and especially the ethics of what he did and the industry he worked in. Looming over our whole conversation was the fact that people who trusted him have lost their savings, and that he's done incalculable damage to everything he proclaimed only a few weeks ago to care about. The grief and pain he has caused is immense, and I came away with our conversation appalled by how much of what he said, but if these mistakes haunted him, he largely didn't show it. And there's all these screenshots of the conversation. It's so crazy to think about. I mean, where to start? It's so relatable in other industries too. Like, for example, I would say anyways, like drone regulations, which is interesting to think about. So beginning with this one here, the person asked, you said a lot about stuff about how you wanted to make regulations just good ones. Was that pretty much just PR too? And then he said, there's no one really out there making sure good things happen and bad things don't. Usually there's only one toggle, to do more or do less. Yeah, just PR. F regulators. They make everything worse. They don't protect customers at all. I mean, for a guy to actually admit this, you always assume it, where a lot of these companies or organizations say, oh, they're doing this and that to protect, let's just say, the little guys. To say, oh, right there, no, it's just for PR, I guess. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? I don't doubt this is true in so many aspects of life. And this next one, the person says, does seem like some of the consumer protection would be good though. Like maybe regulators can't deliver it, but sure does look like consumers lose their shirts a bunch. And he says, agreed on both, it would be good, but regulators can't do it. And who couldn't do it? And CZ sure isn't doing it, so who? And he says here, they can't actually distinguish between good and bad. Just quote, do more business versus do less business, and put up more moats versus put up fewer moats. No one will. But you want to know the truth? No one's doing it in the rest of finance either. So that almost feels like it's kind of like saying no one else is doing this ethically. Ultimately, I guess it's more about money and so forth. That's kind of what I get anyways. It says, or for that matter, other areas that are regulated, the FDA isn't helping. The giant crackdown on big tech has no point or goal or philosophy behind it. OFAC is slowly undermining US interests globally and is the single biggest threat to the US being a superpower. ESG has been perverted beyond recognition. And I guess ultimately the interviewer is trying to say here, they're trying to put together a story of sort of what he believes in, what he thinks is the good guys and bad guys per se. And his comment was, what we're left with at the end of the day is only the rich can incest, only they can make or lose money. There's some truth to it, but it's also true that I didn't want to do sketchy stuff. There are huge negative effects from it, and I didn't mean to. Each individual decision seemed fine, and I didn't realize how big their sum was until the end. And this relates to how I say ultimately it comes down to consistency in life, because it's so hard to tell when people are just lying for their own self-gain per se. It says here, I was just re-listening to that conversation we had this summer about whether you should do unethical shit for the greater good. And he goes, what did I say? You were like, nah, don't do unethical shit. Like, if you're running Philip Morris, no one's gonna want to work with you on philanthropy. And he goes, and there's a risk doing more harm than good, but even if you subtract that out, pretty much not worth it. And he's like, yeah. I was trying to figure it out. If that was kind of the PR off the cuff answer. And he even says here, man, all the dumb shit I said, it's not true. Not really. Yeah, I thought it might not be. And he goes, everyone goes around pretending that perception reflects reality. It doesn't. Some of this decade's greatest heroes will never be known, and some of the most beloved people are basically shams. It's just crazy, again, for someone to actually openly say it. I wonder why. Is it because he's put in a corner right now where it's like, oh, it's over per se, so you might as well just let the cat out of the bag. And they go on here saying, so you kind of don't believe in like doing unethical shit as anything other than a judgment we bestow upon the losers? And he says, a month ago, CZ was a walking example of don't do unethical shit or your money is worthless. Now he's a hero. Is it because he's virtuous or because he had the bigger balance sheet? And so he won. And then he goes, well, I can see why you didn't give the answer in the interviews. And he just kind of laughs it off and says, so the ethics stuff, mostly up front, people will like you if you win and hate you if you lose. And that's how it all really works. And he kind of confirms with that, saying, yeah, I mean, that's not all of it, but it's a lot. The worst quadrant is sketchy plus lose. The best is win plus question mark. Clean plus lose is bad but not terrible. This one kind of dived into manipulating, I guess, emotions and what the current topic or trend is. Again, it's kind of weird to see people actually admit it, per se. It says, you were really good at talking about ethics for someone who kind of saw it all as a game with winners and losers. And he says, yeah, I had to be. It's what reputations are made of to some extent. I feel bad for those who get effed by it, but this dumb game we woke Westerners play where we say all the right shibboleths and so everyone likes us. Can you imagine that? Where it's almost like a guy saying again, hey, I know I'm just saying this stuff to get on your good side, but ultimately that's the game he has to play, and I guess it works for them to do it, right? And then he was asked what's next, and he says, I have 2 weeks to raise $8 billion. That's basically all that matters for the rest of my life. And then the person kind of implies, well, that's going to be really tough, right? And then this kind of got me to think too. And he says, well, a month ago, I was the world's greatest fundraisers. Now I'm the fallen wreckage of one, but there's a thing about being fallen. There are people who know what it's like and who want to do for someone else what nobody did for them. I mean, that's true in many ways, but to me, that's kind of disgusting because just from my personal experience, I've been fooled in life too, where you see someone in a position that you've been in, for example, you don't have, let's say, a lot of money or resources and you help them out, but in the end, they're taking advantage of your generosity, like scamming you in that way, which is kind of like, in a sense what this feels like. Like, yeah, it's $8 billion, but maybe there's someone else out there in life who is in this, I guess, predicament, and they will give me money, I guess, out of pity because they want to help someone. But really, do you deserve that based on what you did here so blatantly and stuff as well? It's just like double, I guess, the negative for this guy, in my opinion. But it's so crazy again to hear someone actually openly admit this. So many common examples too, regardless of the topic. Like here, I would imagine if you want to talk about things like consistency, like those fake people, as I say, I mean, in these examples, I could imagine, let's say with a drone, I'm sure in contrast to it would be the same thing. People would probably come up to me and say, well, what about this person, that person, this organization, or something like that. I mean, look at what they do, in my opinion. I mean, if there's ever a topic that comes out about something bad, like say a regulation, I just like in this case, in those crypto stuff, do these people always insert themselves, mention about their products or their organizations? It's more like a sales pitch, in my opinion. It's so disingenuous, in my opinion. They say it's always follow the money. Maybe that's an easy way to tell who's, I guess, genuine and who isn't. For example, if those people are making a lot of money based on these changes and all that, taking advantage of the situation, then odds are it's not very genuine. Because I remember there was this one anyways where this person in a company, it seemed like they were specifically put there to try to increase their quote drone business out of their, I guess, traditional manned aircraft business. And yet the person comes out and says, no, they're passionate about this and this, but hey, it says right there, you were put in there to try to increase business. Or same thing, someone who basically started, let's just say, I don't know, flying drones and all that, they basically went in to try to sell whatever it is they offered, like their products and so forth. Yet, unfortunately, a lot of people fall for it. Alright, see you guys later.